family. I hope everybody is here. Come on in, come on in. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm just getting set up here, but I wanted to come on and share this with you guys. Share the word of the Lord with you guys, something that the Lord dropped in my spirit. And so I hope that it blesses you. I'm just getting some stuff here taken care of. But I wanted to talk to you guys. This is a message that I share with our family, our church family in Houston, a New Home Family Worship Center. This is something I shared with them earlier this week entitled The X Factor. And so I shared that with them. And I wanted to share it with you guys because I think it's going to be a blessing to you. I think it's going to bless you guys. So first things first, dealing with this, and let me set the scene for you guys because we've been really teaching on prayer and the benefits to prayer and what happens when the church prays, what happens when the believer prays, what happens when the people of God pray. We've really just been focusing in on that over the past couple of months at New Home. And so I got an opportunity to share based off that. And I came from, let me find my scripture here where I came from. Let's see if I still have it up here. Yeah, I do. I came out of Isaiah. And I think I did Isaiah chapter 1. Yeah, I came out of Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18. And it was a real quick verse, wasn't saying nothing too long. But the Lord was talking to Israel in this text. And y'all share this. Invite somebody in, invite your family in, Periscope family, Facebook family, invite your people in. But the word of the Lord has said, in verse 18 says, "Come now, let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured by the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." And I went from here in this text, and like I said, it's been a long week, but I dealt with something, and I looked up this definition. The definition of the X Factor, or an X Factor, is a noteworthy special talent or quality, or a variable for a given situation that could be most significant to impact, the situation that could have the most significant impact on the outcome. In other words, it is that one thing, one ingredient, one variable that could cause the greatest impact on the outcome. All right? And so what I want to do is I'm gonna share this with you guys because I wanted to challenge your mind as it pertains to hearing the voice of God, listening to the voice of God, and allowing God to simply just to speak to your spirit, and while you're on your journey, pursuing the things that God has for your life. And understand something, that your spirit, or the Spirit of God that lives on the inside, that resides on the inside of you, it's accustomed to hearing the voice of God. It's accustomed to receiving the voice of God. And it's in your spirit where you're made aware of all the blessings that God has for your life. The reason why most people miss out on the blessing of God, watch this, is because they don't either respond to his voice, or rather they don't seek his voice, they don't seek his opinion on the matter, or they don't respond to his voice. They don't move, they don't get up, they don't do anything. And Satan knows this. Satan knows this, which is why he literally creates systems, creates things in your life, obstacles in your life, to distract you and interfere with you hearing the voice of God. I was telling them in the church this week, I was telling them at New Home this week for Bible study that isn't it something that whenever you start trying to pursue the things of God and start trying, and God's getting ready to shift you and move you into something big, one of the first things the enemy does is he attacks you. By attacking you is he starts to attack your prayer life. One of the first things the enemy does to try to shut down the move of God in your life, to try to interfere with the move of God taking place in your life, is he tries to interrupt your prayer life. He creates a whole bunch of stuff around you in your environment to try to disrupt the flow of prayer in your life. He tries to interfere with the dialogue between you and your Heavenly Father. Because he knows that if he can interrupt your prayer life, then he can stop you from getting instructions that you need to hear for the next season of your life. He knows that if he can break down the communication between you and God, then he knows that he can interfere with you getting the instructions that you need for your next season. You don't know how to operate unless you have instructions. And the more instructions you get, the more intel you get, the more you know how you should proceed. When God is trying to shift something into your life, he's going to release, watch this, he's going to get instructions and put them into your spirit. He's going to download them into your spirit, and it's up for you to obey what God placed in your spirit. And your obedience, I've said this before, it is an extension of your faith. Bishop talked about faith today. Your obedience, it is an extension of your faith. Will you trust God enough to do exactly what he says that you are to do? We were in a conference this week, Bishop, or rather Dr. Ivy Hilliard, and one of the themes that he said was, no matter what. No matter what. Are you willing to obey God no matter what is going on around you? Everything is looking like it's coming against you. The statistics say something else. The facts say something else. People say something else. But are you still willing to obey God in spite of everything that's going on around you or working against you? All right, watch this. Because at the end of the day, whether you realize it or not, the outcome of obedience is the manifestation of the blessing of the Lord on our life. See, we always like to declare it and everything, but yes, the Bible says we have the blessing of the Lord on our life. It makes us rich and it adds no sorrow to our life. The reason why it adds no sorrow to our life, watch this, is because unleashing the blessing of the Lord is predicated upon your ability to obey the voice of God or obey the word of the Lord. I'll say that again. Unleashing the word, the blessing of the Lord is predicated upon your ability to obey the word of the Lord. In other words, when you obey, you put yourself in a position where you can unleash, you can receive, you can watch, you can witness the word of the Lord manifest, the promises of God manifest over your life through your obedience. So how should our obedience look from this point forward? How should we respond to God with our obedience? Well, number one, and I only have 3 points. Number one, you have to sacrifice. Watch this. You have to have the ability. You need to be flexible enough to be able to sacrifice so the will of God, the plan of God, can be established. You got to be flexible. You can't be so rigid in what you want to do that you miss God completely. You got to be able to be in a place where you say, all right, the will of God, the plan of God for my life is priority. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22, it says, So Samuel said, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. In other words, does the Lord get more joy and gladness over you, doing traditions and customs and going through the motions and everything, or what you want to do, what you're feeling in that moment, or does he more so get obedience? More so, does he get more joy and happiness out of your ability to obey his voice? There have been times where I've got up to preach, and I have literally got up to preach and everything, and I had one thing planned, and the Lord tells me, after sitting in a house, after sitting in a ministry at a gathering, the Lord tells me I'm getting ready to take the pulpit, I'm getting ready to take the podium, and the Lord tells me, you were gonna preach this, but I want you to preach that. You preached that 2 weeks ago. I want you to preach it again in this house. And what I found out is the times that I decided, where I was able to decipher, and every time that I, let me say it like this, every time that I deciphered it right, got it right, and listened to the voice of God, those were the times that I seen the most prolific outpouring and manifestation of his presence in that service. The times that I listened to the voice of God, every time I listened to the voice of God and he changed my message and I preached what he wanted me to preach, whenever I preach something that God wants me to preach, something that I just, and he just wrecks my message and changed my plans and everything, every time I followed God, I got a prolific outcome. The Lord did something, he literally blew my mind. See, sometimes you have to understand that some of the best obedience that you could ever offer up to God is getting out of his way. It's good to see my dad on here. Hey, Bishop. Some of the best obedience that you will ever offer up to God is having enough faith that God is in control and that he doesn't need you to be in his way. Can I be honest with you guys? God doesn't need your assistance bringing his plan to pass in your life. God does not need your hands to get all in the mix, moving stuff around, you touching things, you doing whatever you feel like doing, you moving around and doing whatever. God does not need your hands involved to accomplish his plan in your life. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. There have been times when my obedience was to get out of the way and allow God to do his thing. I had to learn this through seasons of loss. I had to learn this through seasons of trial where I was trying to hold on to what I wanted to do, my plans, what I wanted to do, my opinion, and I'm just holding on, trying to, God, do it my way. And this is what is priority for me. This is what was priority for me in that season. I'm trying to hold on to my priorities and my agendas instead of operating as if God's agenda is first. I just heard the Lord say, when you make me the priority, I'll make your stuff priority. When you make God the priority, he will make your stuff priority. See, my faith went to another dimension. My faith went to another dimension when I witnessed God restore my life and put things together in my life and bring my life into alignment with his plan once I obeyed. Your life will literally move and shift into alignment when you begin to obey the word of God. Everybody says divine alignment, divine alignment. I want God, we want to be in divine alignment with God and this and that. Well, let me help you. Divine alignment starts with obedience. Divine alignment starts with obedience. If you can't do what it is that God is telling you to do, then you will always spend your life trying to catch up, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, trying to do this over here, trying to do that over there, trying to make this make sense over here, trying to make that make sense over there. No. Obey God. Do what it is that the Lord has told you to do. This is why I say it takes faith to obey God. It took faith. It was an extension of my faith for me to leave my life in Detroit, Michigan, and come all the way to a city, to a city that I had never been in before, that I'd never lived and been in before like that. I remember when I first moved to Texas, I would pass through Houston. But I could count the times that I actually did anything in Houston besides stop at the airport or something like that when I first moved to Texas. But I knew God had called me to Houston. I knew God had a plan for me in Houston. I knew God wanted me to be in Houston. I knew God's purpose for my life was in Houston. And so I got myself up and I moved from my home and came to where God called me to be. Is this making sense to you? Sometimes you just got to follow God even when it doesn't make sense. My family, my safety net, all my resources, everything that I needed to excel in life, that I was holding on to the excel in life that had got me to where I needed to be was in Michigan. I left all of that to come follow God. And to this day, people ask me, what brought you, when they tell them where I'm originally from, when I tell them, yeah, I'm from Detroit, and they ask me, man, what brought you all this way? I tell them, God. Yeah, the Lord brought me all this way. He had a plan, he had a purpose for me here in Houston. I've been here ever since. Don't plan on going back either. All right, number two. You have to commit to posturing yourself for manifestation. My mother's on here too. My mom's on here. It's good to see you, First Lady. You have to commit to posturing yourself. You have to commit to posturing yourself for manifestation. You got to get in position. I don't know no other way to do it. And let me say this. I know that the will of God is about to manifest in my life when I start to experience unprecedented attacks. I mean, stuff I ain't never experienced before. Intense stuff, just like, man, this is crazy. Where'd this come from? Another thing after another thing after another thing after another. When God starts shaking my life up, when the enemy just starts to unleash a barrage of attacks against me, I know that God is about to open up a door for me. I know that he's about to give me favor somewhere with somebody. I can feel it. I expect it. And I just got to get through what I'm going through so I can receive what he has for me. See, the attack, it's designed, watch this, to ultimately hinder you, if that makes sense. The attack on your marriage, the attack on your finances, the attack on your body, the attack on your children's lives, and their health, things like that. It's designed to put you in a position where you ultimately stop pursuing the things of God or stop pursuing what God has for your life. And I heard Dr. Ivy Hilliard say this: when the enemy starts to come in and everything, and you start seeing problems, that is not the time for you to back off. He's like, that is not the time for you to back off. It's designed to push you to a place where you just settle and say, I'm going to back off of what God told me. No. The devil is a liar. You have to allow yourself to go through it so you can be positioned for the blessing. You have to posture yourself for the blessing. You have to have mental fortitude. You have to have the spiritual resolve and conviction to say that I am going to be relentless as it pertains to what God promised me. I'm going to walk through faith. I'm going to walk in faith, and I'm going to walk out. I'm going to carry out the instructions that God has for my life. I'm going to move through every strategy that he has given me because I know that God's plan ultimately leads me to success. See, instructions are designed to put you on a path to success. You ever try to build something without following the instructions? It ends in disaster. I can tell you. I've tried it before. This is why God gives us good shepherds. This is why God gives us apostles. This is why God gives us prophets, because they help communicate God's instructions, God's plan, his logos and his rhema. They help communicate God's plans for us and his instructions for us, so that we can move through we can walk and move along the path of success into our destiny, into what God has for our life. This is why. You can't think that you're gonna be successful and you don't follow the instructions. No, sir. No, ma'am. You can't think that you can't honestly think that you are going to be successful and you can't follow God's plans or instructions for your life. You can't think that. You might get a little progress, You might get a little progress here and there, but you'll never be able to successfully be what it is God called you to be if you don't work his plan for your life, if you don't work his instructions. My dad came on here the other night, and he was saying that, folk lazy. You don't work. And that's the reality of it. You don't work what it is that God put in your spirit to do. He says, I'll give you witty inventions. This is what his word says. He said, I'll give you witty inventions. When he was saying in that text, he's saying that I'm going to give you opportunities. I'm going to give you strategies. I'm going to give you, something to create that is going to put you in a place of success, where you're going to be able to profit from it, where you're going to be blessed from it. Not only will you eat from it, your whole family's going to eat from it. He says, I'll give you witty inventions. I'll give you stuff to create that nobody else has ever thought of before, and it'll bless the masses if you work it. If you work it. You got to follow instructions. Instructions lead to the path of success. And then number 3, and then I'm done. This last one is going to be tough for y'all. Because I know y'all got some family structures. I know you got some friends. I know you got some people, some confidants, stuff like that. I get it. I totally understand it. I totally understand it. But you cannot, hear me, you cannot allow people to dictate your obedience. You can't. You cannot allow people to dictate your obedience. It doesn't work that way. You can't allow people to dictate your obedience. It just doesn't work that way. You can't allow people to dictate your obedience. It doesn't work that way. You can Saul. I'll read it to you like this. I don't know if you guys ever read this story in the Bible, but it was the story of when Saul had he had pulled out the offering and everything, and the Bible talks about how Samuel had told the people to go up to the mountain for a certain amount of times, and people got scared. They were hiding in caves, and Saul was in a position where there was a lot of pressure being placed on him. He was in a position, there was a lot of pressure being placed on him. We get it, Saul. And Saul, he decided that he was going to make a sacrifice. He was going to lift up a sacrifice and everything. He told them, bring me the burnt offerings, bring me the ram and everything. And after he finished the sacrifice, here comes Samuel. And Saul knew the word of the Lord, that he was not supposed to make sacrifices unto the Lord. That was the priest's job. Saul understood that. And so Saul, he decided, instead of listening to the voice of God, he decided to listen to the voice of the people, because the people were pressuring him. The people were, murmuring, they were complaining, they were pressuring him. Saul's worst decision was when he decided to follow the voice of the people instead of following the voice of God. That was his worst decision ever. When God has placed something in your life, when God has placed something in your spirit, and it's divine revelation, and you know that you know that you know that you know, you cannot, it's up to you to guard what God has placed in your spirit from people and their negativity. Bishop was talking about it today, and he said that sometimes you gotta, you can't allow people's, you can't allow the negative, nasty conversation of people to affect your faith, to disrupt your faith, to influence your faith. You can't allow people to do it. Sometimes, we learned this week in our in training this week at the Strategies Conference that sometimes people have a skewed criteria. It's a flawed criteria for their faith. And if you're not careful, you will allow people to inculcate their level of faith in you. If you are not careful, people will project their fears, their anxiety, what they feel they cannot do, off on you, when God has told you something that is quite the contrary. When God has told you that, hey, I'm going to put you in a business, your business is going to birth something so great, it's going to be $1 million business. I'm going to give you $1 million idea so you can build $1 million business, and you're going to take care of this people over here. You're going to take care of people over there. You're going to do all these great things. And because people feel like, they can't do it, they feel like you can't do it. No, the devil is a liar. If God is for me, then who can be against me? If God gives me a strategy for it, if he tells me I can do it, then he's going to bring it to pass in my life. And the reality is you can't always share what God has placed in your spirit with everybody. Because guess what? At the end of the day, everybody doesn't understand it. Everybody can't get with it because they don't understand it. Everybody can't get with it because they don't understand it. When you start understanding that, it is what it is, there are certain things that God puts in my spirit that I just don't share with everybody. I don't share it with everybody because I know it'd be like, what the scripture said. It'd be like casting my pearls before swine. I'm just not going to do it. You know what I do a lot? When God puts something in my spirit and I want to hold on to it, instead of sharing it with everybody, I write it down. I journal a lot. In my private time, laying in my bed at night, and the day is ended and everything, I sit up and I will journal. I will sit there and I will just write down what it is that God has put in my spirit. I journal all day long because I understand that I have to release that stuff and I have to work that stuff. And the thing about when you journal is you can always go back to what it is that God told you. You can always go back to that. And there are times in my life where I just go back and when I'm going through something or when, what I'm going through at that moment doesn't look like what God is telling me, I just go back and I look at what God said. This is what God told me at this time. This is what God told me at that time. And I just follow God. And I stay with that. And I follow God. I move with that. But I said all that to say, you guys, you're great people. You're believers of Christ. But the X factor, when we talk about the X factor, that one variable that has the ability to change the course of your life, it's your response. It's your obedience. The X factor is your obedience. It is your obedience, your ability to follow God, even though you don't like what he said, even though what he said may be uncomfortable, it may feel uncertain. Shout out to the people that still do what God says do, even when it's scary. Yeah, shout out to those people. Because you're doing it even though you have no idea what's about to happen. Am I going to sink? Am I going to swim? Shout out to those people. So, when you're just going to follow God despite what it is, despite what's going on, shout out to those people. Yes, that's what I was looking for. So I hope this, I really hope this blessed y'all. Listen, I want you to connect with me. Follow me. Visit my website. My website is jlsmithglobal.com. Visit my website. Visit my social media pages. Officially JL Smith is my name on Instagram. That's the one I'm really more on a lot. Facebook, I'm on my public figure page, JL Smith. You can visit me there. But I want you to visit me on YouTube. Go to my YouTube page. Visit me. Connect with me. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you turn your little notification symbol on, the little bell. Make sure that's turned on as well so you can know when I'm putting new content up. But I want you to, connect with me on YouTube, and feel free to email me. Some of you have emailed me, and I've just been going. I'm going to get back with you, but email me. I respond back to emails. I respond, and I get the chance to talk with you guys and share with you guys, and it's been amazing. You're helping me build some stuff here, so I'm excited. But remember, your obedience, it is the X factor. It's what it makes the difference between your success and your failure. Your ability to listen to God, to flow with God, to move on what God says. All right? Listen, I love y'all, and I'll talk to everybody soon. God bless you all.